This is Solve It for Kids.
Hello, my amazing and curious friends. My name is Jennifer, the Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, and this is Solve It for Kids, the podcast that gives kids and families a peek inside the real world of scientists, engineers, and experts as they solve problems in their jobs using creativity, cooperation, and critical thinking. And now please welcome to the show my podcast partner, Galactic Space Geek, Jeff Gagne.
Hello, Jennifer, and hello, listeners. We have reached that time of the year again where Jennifer and Jeff are taking a little break for the summer to make sure we recharge our batteries and re-energize ourselves for all things STEM and STEAM. So for that, it is time to get to our best of episodes.
So what episodes are we going to be listening to this week?
The best of working with robots.
The best of robots! Yay!
How can you not love this one?
Right! This is going to be so fun. So remember how this goes. For the best of, you get clips of a couple of different episodes, and you kind of get to get a feel for what it is, so you can go and listen to the episodes and hear the whole thing. So what are we going to be hearing? Episode 126, How Do You Talk to a Robot? With Dr. Carlotta Berry. Episode 144, How Do Humans and Robots Feel? With Dr. Darren Lipomi. And finally, episode 150 with Dr. Topher Hunter, that is How Do You Build a Droid? So have fun listening to these and enjoy your summer, because I know Jeff and I are going to enjoy our break.
How do you talk to a robot?
I get it. How do you talk to a robot? Very good, Jeff. So who is our amazing guest today?
When we want to talk to a robot, we go straight to the source. We have the fantastic Dr. Carlotta Berry, and she is the Lawrence J. Giacoletto Endowed Chair and Professor of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology.
Wonderful. Welcome to the show, Dr. Carlotta.
Hi, Jeff and Jennifer. Thank you so much for having me.
We are thrilled to have you with us. And you do so many amazing things. And can I just say, you get to work with robots. Woo! I'm so excited.
I do. And I love it. I love every minute of it. I'm an electrical engineer and controls engineer, but I also like to say I'm a robotics engineer.
And all of that is so cool. So we like to start out the show sometimes with, did you always want to work with robots as a kid? Were you one of those kids that started building them a long time ago? Or did you just find it recently?
So I was not. And I like to say I am one of those kids who broke the mold. I was not skinny when I was younger. When I was younger, I wanted to be a school teacher. I was all about my dollies, baby. I gave them homework.
You gave your dolls homework?
I did, and I graded, and they didn't always get it right either. They needed to get on it, honey.
I love it. Okay, so now we know where the Professor Berry comes from, because that started right away. So how did you make that transition from being Dolly Girl to electrical engineer and robots?
So when I was in middle school, I really loved math. So I had decided I was going to be a high school math teacher. I wanted to teach high school math. So by the time I got to high school, I was going to be a calculus teacher. I was in a program. I had gone to a magnet school because my principal told me in the 6th grade I was wasting my time at my current school. And they put me in a program where a career counselor said, with your math and science skills, you should really be an engineer. And I said, a train conductor? I don't want to drive trains. So I went to the library and I looked up engineer because I'm dating myself, before internet, before cell phones. I actually had to walk to the library.
We were there.
I read it in a book, looked interesting, and I was like, eh. So I decided to get a math and an electrical engineering bachelor's degree in college because if the engineering thing didn't work out, I could slide back to math teacher.
Right.
I loved it. I love both, actually. I still do. And I took my first robotics course in college. Yeah.
And you were hooked. Is that what you're saying? You were hooked when you
did. And what really hooked me is I went to Georgia Tech, but their robots were so doggone expensive that only the grad students got to touch them. You had to look at them through a page. And I was like, ew, this is no fun. I want to touch the robot.
You sound like every student that I've ever worked with when there's robots in the room. Every kid wants to touch. Nobody wants to be the one watching.
Yes.
You're going to get to do. So what was your first experience at college being able to actually work with the robots?
So I programmed the robots. We wrote the software. We looked behind the cage to see how they did. And when I graduated, I became a controls engineer, which also does robotics. So my real hands-on experience came during my internships when I was in college and when I went to go work at Ford Motor Company. I worked at a manufacturing plant facility that had real robots. So I got to work on the robots. I got to work on the line. I got to write the programming. So it went from I was still behind a cage, but now instead of a glass cage, an industrial cage, so it didn't knock me across the plant. But I got to have that real world experience each and every day at work.
So
that's great.
So tell us a little bit, because I think this is fascinating, about how they use the robots on the lines to make the cars. Yeah. Why is it better to use robots, or why do they use robots? I got you, Jen. So good. When I teach my students, I tell them that robots are ideal for the 3Ds. The 3Ds of robotics are there for tasks robots are good for tasks that are dirty, dangerous, and dull. So the ones that you are talking about, an industrial facility is dull because the robot is sitting there and moving some piece of technology or a door or a windshield over and over again. It becomes dull. It's dangerous because a person doing that all day could get injured. They could get hurt. They could hurt their back. They could hurt their arms. And it is also dirty because you can also have a plant that has robots that paint cars. Breathing in those fumes, right? And getting that stuff on you is not good. So dirty, dull, and dangerous. The 3Ds of robotics is why some things you don't want humans to do. I love that.
Yes.
I don't want to go too far into the car world, but because you were just talking about the paints and moving pieces, I'm imagining there's a lot of different types of robots that are in a plant like that. Not just one that, is a mechanical arm that picks something up, moves it to the left, grabs the next, moves it to the left.
That's called a manipulator. That's called an industrial manipulator. That's the one that looks like the arm that picks things up and moves them. Okay. Those are the kind I worked on, but now it's a lot different.
Okay. I was just going to ask, so did you work on one type of robot in the factory or all the different types?
So then I worked on the industrial manipulators, pick and place robots, the ones that picked up heavy stuff and moved it is what we called it. I worked in a windshield plant. So my robots picked up the windshields and stacked them onto carts. However, since then, I now do mobile robotics. And if you think about Amazon warehouse, where they fill the packages that get delivered to your home, those are mobile robots or wheeled robots or mobots. They have wheels on them. So they drive and they go pick up packages and they drive them over to some kind of pallet and they stack them and then they get shipped to you.
How do humans and robots feel?
How do humans and robots feel? I sense this is going to be a great episode. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
Our guest today is the very smart Dr. Darren Lipomi. He is professor of nanoengineering at the Jacobs School of Engineering at UC San Diego, and he is also a fellow podcaster with Molecular Podcasting.
Welcome to the show, Dr. Darren.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Well, we are excited to have you. And I'm just going to jump right in because I have an idea what nanoengineering is, but I'm not sure that our listeners do. Could you kind of explain that to us? What is nanoengineering?
Nanoengineering is the study and application of materials that have nanoscale dimensions. And a nanometer is 1/1000th of a meter. So anything with one of its dimensions from 1/1000th of a meter to 100 billionths of a meter is within our expertise.
So like really, really, really small.
Really small. We're talking like a millionth the width of a human hair.
Oh my gosh. And you do engineering with this.
Yeah, we synthesize materials, we look at them under microscopes, we make solar cells and prosthetic devices out of them. It's all fair game.
Okay, and we need to talk more about that. I've never heard the parameters that you just gave of, say, 1/1 billionth to 100 billionths. When it gets a little bit bigger than those parameters, what does it then become?
That's a good question. So some people will criticize nanoengineering as being something that the microelectronics industry has already been doing. So if you open up your computer and you look at that, the smallest possible size, the transistors are about 7 nanometers across, but they call that microfabrication. But we say, well, nanomaterials actually have different properties from conventional materials.
Yes.
So it seems that it's more appropriate to start talking about this very small scale world in terms of nano instead of micro, because it's something different.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very cool. I did a book on nanotechnology a few years ago. So I'm sure probably everything I learned back then is all completely different. The applications are different. But can you explain that, how on the nanoscale things appear different and act differently than in like regular, what we think of as normal scale type things?
There are a lot of properties that change when you shrink stuff down. So a gold particle that's a millimeter across or an inch across, it looks gold. But when you shrink it down to less than 50 nanometers, maybe down to 5 or 10 nanometers, it's red. You put it in a solution and it's red, and it interacts with light in a very different way. Usually nanoscale materials have most of their atoms on the outside or close to the outside, because when you shrink something down, its surface area gets bigger while its volume gets smaller by comparison. So with all those surface atoms, they tend to melt sooner because they're not connected to as many atoms. And so you get melting point depression and things like that.
It's so cool working with materials like that, I think.
Okay, we're going to jump right back into that. However, I do have to ask, when you started learning about engineering back in your school days and college days, did you know you wanted to do nano? Or was there something about it that just grabbed your interest and you've stuck with it since?
There were a couple of different things. I think that one of the things that I always wanted to do is work on the energy challenge. I was always interested in efficiency and green chemistry and green engineering. And as an undergraduate, I had a project at Boston University on running a bunch of different molecules through what's called a reaction column that had nanomaterials in it. And out pops a very sophisticated molecule that was made of those 3 different components that you put in. And because of that, it's very efficient. There was very little wasted solvent, very little wasted energy. And that was an example of a green synthesis, and I wanted to do something with nano because of its application in the energy sector.
I love how you were able to figure out that you wanted to do that from doing that one project. A lot of times, you do a project, you hand it in, and as a student, you're just like, whew, that one's done. Okay, what's next? And we don't really take anything from it. And it sounds like you took a whole lot from it.
Yeah.
Sure. Like the history of organic chemistry is making pharmaceutical compounds, making polymers and paints and plastics and stuff. And the connection as a 19-year-old wasn't clear to me that an organic chemist could contribute to the energy challenge. And then that project opened up this whole world that said, indeed, my skills are applicable here.
That's awesome. And that's something we've heard from other guests on our show is just kind of keep your eyes open, because sometimes you'll end up learning something while you're doing it that might take you in a completely different path, which is what this one did. But now I'm curious how you got from energy to what we're kind of talking about today, which is, the sense of touch. How did you make that leap?
Yeah, so a professor at a university like me gets to pick a core scientific problem. And this is how you look smart in front of your highfalutin faculty colleagues who write you recommendation letters, and this is how you get grants. But then with this one core scientific area, what you do is you look for places to apply it. Things that excite you. So my core scientific area is organic nanostructures.
How do you build a droid?
How do you build a droid? Now, notice we said droid and not robot, so I have a feeling we're going to learn the difference between those two. Who is our guest today, Jeff?
Oh, get ready. Our guest today is the fantastic Dr. Topher Hunter. For his day job, he's a scientist at a medical device company, but we are talking to him because he is a near professional hobbyist in robotics and droid building.
Welcome to the show, Topher.
Thank you.
Well, we are so thrilled to have you. So your day job is as working in a medical device company, but you build really cool robots, which we're going to talk about. But I'm curious, have you always built robots, even as a kid?
No. As a kid, I loved to build with Lego and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And love to play around on my computer. But computer programming, building electronics, no.
Wow.
Okay. So how did that come about? Was that something along the way in school, or was that even later in life?
It was later in life. When I was a high school student and in university, I was very good at what we call releasing the magic smoke, which is that all electronics work by magic smoke inside. And if you let the smoke out, they don't work anymore. I was doing things that friends of mine who were much better at electronics were like, how did you do that? So I was really good at making big mistakes.
Okay.
So that's how you learned, by making big mistakes?
Well, that's how I learned that at first I did not want to do any of this.
Oh.
And, we had a robotics club in university, and we were part of the whole like early BattleBots kind of thing.
Oh, yes.
We had student teams, and I was just noped out of that big time.
All right.
Then, almost a decade ago, I got involved with a costuming club called the 501st Legion, the 501st Legion.
Right.
And we are a club that builds Star Wars costumes and then wears them. We build as perfect a replica as we can get of what's on screen.
Wow.
And then we wear them for charities. There you go. Yeah. So we wear them for charities. We wear them to, Comic-Cons and all that kind of stuff.
I have a brother that's a stormtrooper.
Excellent. Well, there you go. I'm TD 12127. But it's a lot of fun. One of the things I noticed, though, was that when we were at what we call a trooping event, was that if either a Wookiee or a droid showed up, all the attention went to them.
Oh, okay.
Absolute truth.
So, everyone wants either to get a photo with the big fuzzball or with R2 or 3PO.
Yes.
So I was basically jealous. And so I decided I was going to turn to the other side and I was going to build this droid. And I thought, okay, this can't be too hard, right? Oh, dear.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
The fun part is that just like the 501st is they do all the bad guys, the stormtroopers, Darth Vader, all that.
Okay.
Sure.
There's also a group that focuses on the heroes that's called Rebel Legion.
Okay.
And then there's the Astromech Club, which is the droid builders.
Yes.
So it's this worldwide club. Every continent, most of the countries have members. And so in that club, we share designs, we share bits of computer code that we've optimized. Right. And so you kind of can pull from bits and pieces, and you can get lots of help from the people on the forum.
Wow.
And you can just kind of learn through, and they're really helpful and great about, coaching you through the basics. And that's how I learned. I just learned by saying, okay, I'm going to do this.
Okay. So what was the first droid that you attempted to build?
The very first one was an R2-D2.
Okay. That's who I would have picked. He's my favorite. R2-D2. I have an R2-D2 suitcase that I
There you go.
I'm that person in the airport.
Yeah. You can get these beautiful little small R2 droids from blanking on the name of the company, but they make beautiful little remote control droids and stuff that you can play with, and they're really cool and well done. And so, we build the whole club. We build life-size replicas of the droids that are seen on screen. So I've got, next to me here, I've got Chopper. He's actually my favorite, and he's a blast. I have lots of fun.
So life size is what, 3 feet or so?
So he's about 3 feet tall. He's basically waist height on an adult, and he's completely 3D printed.
Okay.
I was gonna ask. Okay.
Yeah, listeners, just a quick pause. We will have pictures of these on this website. Yes. Go ahead, Dr. Topher.
Yeah. So he's fully 3D printed, and then he has some very simple electronics inside that run his motors and spin his dome, and he makes noises and stuff. And then I have a little remote control that I can hide in my pocket, and I can drive him from about 40 feet away.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
That's very cool.
Okay. So I want to ask about the 3D printing, because he has color. So he's orange on the top and kind of with yellow, and then the body's white. Is the head kind of all one piece? How do you do that with 3D printing?
So it depends on what tools you have available to you.
Talk about a best of that's going to get all of the listeners to listen to all 3 of those episodes. Who's not going to love Best of Robots? And as soon as you hear those episodes with these 3 amazing guests, everybody's going to be hopping on Google and learning more about talking to robots and how AI is going to help. What do you think, Jennifer?
I think absolutely. So don't forget, if you want to listen to the entire episode, you need to go to our website, solveitforkids.com. You can search for the episode in the upper right corner so you don't have to go through all of them. But if you want to stay on and listen to a few more episodes, that would be amazing. Tell us what you think about our best of episode on our social media. We are at KidSolve at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We hope to hear from you.
Until our next best of episode, Jen and Jeff will be on summer break. We'll talk to you next time on
Solve It for Kids.